Hey everybody, it's me, Spot of Nerd. It's been a while since you've seen the one, the only, the beautiful, that is me. So, it's been a while since we've actually done one of these reviews, so fair warning, the spoiler routine, if you haven't seen it already, I'll definitely be talking about just the sheer awesome that is the one, the only, the man himself, Keanu Reeves, once again nails this role. Let's talk about John Wick, Chapter 4. The best way I can describe these films, maybe one day we'll actually do a review on all the John Wick films. It is a classy, elegant, chivalristic, if that's a word, badass, action, violent film. And it is one of those rare franchises that just gets better and better with each movie, and Chapter 4 is no different. You are a fool if you do not go see this film in theaters or watch it later on when it goes to streaming service. This movie, and I swear hand on my heart, this movie deserves an Oscar for just everything. Action, production, actors and actresses, story, blah-de-blue, blue, blah. You can clearly see the happy and joy and excitement, the passion that watching this film was watching a masterpiece come together. And like I've said, this is the 4th film in the franchise. The fact that they can literally top the next one, the one from before, it's something that we've never really seen before. It's that good. And I dip my invisible hat to Keanu and everybody else that partakes in these films, because please don't ever stop. And to kind of give you the biggest spoiler of them all, so again, fair warning, I'm a little worried because the rumor mill, the forums, supposedly they're going to make more of these films, but he's dead in this film. So, like, at the end of the film, he dies, supposedly. So, that's where I'm kind of like, is he really dead? You know, it's kind of that type of vibe, if you get my meaning. There is a post-credit scene. This is the first time a John Wick film has a post-credit scene. The post-credit scene does absolutely nothing to... I mean, I don't really understand why they put it in there, but I guess they kind of want to give you a little bit of a we're not done yet type vibe. It has nothing to do with John Wick, by the way, but if you are watching this film in the theater, stay until the end, because there is a very, very small credit scene. And so let's just kind of talk a little bit about what makes it so great. So to those of you listening right now, thank you so much. To those of you that are watching right now, also a huge thanks. Like I've said, these are just better episodes, in my opinion. I'm not editing as much as I used to. I'm simply just going to go with it. So if I stutter, if I repeat myself, blah-de-blah-blue, you understand why. It's like the podcast. This will be a part of the podcast series I have as well, which you can listen to on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, and of course you can watch it here. But the biggest thing that I'm going to start to do with Spot of Nerd is I'm going to start pushing my content on Rumble. And the reason for that, Cliff Notes, we'll get back to John Wick Chapter 4, is Louder with Crowder, Steven Crowder recently came back to the world and is nailing it again. Every part of it is just incredible. You should be checking out Louder with Crowder to really get the best news, in my opinion, the best vibes, some laughs, some good old times from, let's just say, comedians, conservatives, blah blah blue. But I've said that now, 4 times? Blah blah blue, that's 5. And it's really, he's kind of inspired me because, you know, it's one of those things with YouTube, you've got to be very careful. And I'll even show you an example of why I'll almost bet this video gets taken down on YouTube, because we are talking about John Wick, and John Wick involves a lot of violence, including violence with weapons. So odds are, simply me just showing you this on good old YouTube, and I'm going to make sure I show you the one that doesn't have a serial number. If you follow me, if you listen to me, you watch me, you know I'm an advocate of the Second Amendment. I do believe in the freedom to have a firearm and to protect your family. So John Wick, of course, uses a handgun. The body counts are likely in the thousands by now, and that's another one of those pieces that just makes these films so incredible. But I myself enjoy owning a firearm, and this is just one of many that I own. There's nothing in there. Obviously, before this, I've made sure there's absolutely nothing in the chamber. So from a safety perspective, this is okay. You'll also notice I am not putting my fingers anywhere near that trigger. It is a safety piece. Something, if you ever want to learn, I would love to teach. Obviously, there's plenty of videos online, but you know, safety is of course the #1 thing to owning a firearm. I go to the range, I take classes, I read up on new laws, blah blue blue, that's number 6. But you have to protect yourself, especially in the crazy world that we live in right now. Self-defense is still a thing, if you, God forbid, if you ever had to. But it's just really cool because, again, when you're watching these films like John Wick, you also get that inspiration for firearms, if that makes any sense at all. I know this is kind of going off on a tangent, but bear with me because we will come back to it. You know, you gotta take your hat off to Keanu Reeves. Like, if you've watched the training videos on how they make these films, he goes and he does all his stunts. He does the training, he does everything with the guns and the firearms, and he practices day in and day out to make sure that he also is very up to speed on safety and regulations and laws, so on and so forth, with firearms. So bringing it together really does make John Wick some of the greatest action sequences and violence that you'll ever see in a film. It's incredible, and I know I'm probably just being a broken record with that, but it's just the way, I think, let's dip back, of course, now back into the film. What makes it so incredible are these fight sequences, are these action sequences. Specifically with this new film, the Chapter 4, you know, more of the previous John Wick films, it was kind of just non-stop action. I'm not going to go into the story right now. It's a very convoluted story, but if you've watched the John Wick films, you kind of know where we are right now. He's going to war with these higher up people, and cut a very long story short, again, the movie starts off almost slower, which is new to the John Wick franchise. So you're kind of going, what are they're building something here. And that first action sequence where there's this big group of the higher ups, and they're coming to find John Wick to bring him in or kill him, etc. But John, of course, still has very few friends that he trusts. One specifically that is in, I think it was Japan, I believe. You have to forgive me if I don't remember that. But he's no longer in New York City. So these buildings are the Continental, and the higher-ups are shutting these Continentals down if John Wick has any association with them. But This one that is in the, I think, again, like I say, it's the one that's in Japan, is a good friend of John's, so he's gonna back him. It's what friends do, longtime friends do. It's honor, it's code that you back up your family and your friends. So this huge fight sequence breaks out, and like any fight sequence in a John Wick film, again, it just is better than what the previous films have done. And the way they do it, specifically in this film, specifically with this first fight sequence, is it's martial arts. It's using bows and arrows, and it's using swords and everything in between. And there's even, I have to, you're gonna have to forgive me, but there is a gal who is the daughter of the manager of the Japan Continental. Within the way she's fighting, so obviously she needs to protect her dad, you know, she's pissed off at John because she brought the fight to that part of their world. And I fell in love with this girl. I mean, again, I'll have to go look back at who the cast is of this new Chapter 4 film altogether, but the daughter of the Continental manager, when she started fighting and taking out the bad guys, I fell madly in love. It was just like, holy shit, please marry me right now, because you are one of the most badass chicks I have ever witnessed in a film ever before at all. It's remarkably insane how incredible the training and the fighting sequences are to put together to make this entire piece work. And it only gets better from there, you know. Some of the other fight sequences that I'm trying to think back to, because I just saw it today, you know, they're in Paris, and the big circle roundabout, I'm terrible with names, but you'll know what I'm talking about. In Paris, with that big, there's this huge sequence again where they're trying to put a hit on John before he can do his final duel with the guy that's basically trying to take him out. You know, there's cars going around, and there's the city that is trying to get John, and there's just bodies getting hit by traffic, and you've got John who is just doing some of this like Fast and Furious street drag racing, and it's so fucking badass. And then the last part of it where he, you know, he's got to get to this church to do this duel with the baddie, and it's this giant flight of steps, but of course there's all these bad guys trying to stop him to get up these steps, and it's just the choreography. It reminds me almost of Daredevil, when the Netflix Daredevil, but imagine Daredevil times 1,000. It is so incredible just how they put all these pieces together. So I love it, and like I say, you have got to go and watch this film ASAP. Definitely, if you haven't seen the original John Wick and the second and the third, you need to see those first. I promise you, you will not understand really what the story is unless you see the prequels, I guess, now. But even if you just saw it on its own, you would probably understand it. You might be asking questions of like, who is that, why did they do this, blah 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 blah. But I love, just to kind of wrap this review up, you know, I mean, 4 cups of tea out of 4 cups of tea, hands down, from Spot of Nerd. You know, this story arc has just grown exponentially. It started off, there's always the memes out there where the bad guys killed his dog, and they took his car, blah blah blah, and that's how this whole movie kind of franchise started. But it's evolved, you know. It's one of those, in the first film, we always were left with questions of, who is this society? Who are these people? And they've actually given us those answers as the films have developed. You know, John Wick just wants to be free, and he wants to be gone from this whole crap, because what it comes down to, John Wick was able to get out originally, and he fell in love, and it breaks your heart because there's so much more emotion in this film from John Wick. It's not just violence and action and death, but you feel for this guy because he just wants out. You know, he lost his wife, and spoiler, one of the best moments of this new Chapter 4 film is they're talking about him and some of his other colleagues that he can trust. You know, they're talking about tombstones. What do you want written on your tombstone? And the best thing John Wick says is, he says, I want mine to say loving husband. And there's always, throughout the films, previously as well as this one, there's always flashbacks of John and his wife. And it reminds you that really love is what it's all about. And you will do whatever you can to protect that love. And I'm going to go down a negative path here real quick, so just bear with me. It makes me envious, and it makes me just wish I had that. You know, I've said this in many podcasts, and I will say it in many future episodes to come. I don't think it exists anymore. And I don't say that in a derogatory, negative way, even though it sounds like it. I just really mean that, I don't know, love at that level, it doesn't exist in this world. And it's really sad. Now, if you have that love, fucking hold on to that shit like it is life or death, because I promise you, you will never find it again. So not only do I pray and hope that you continue that love forever, but sweet mother of God, even in the worst times possible, do not lose that love, because it's very, very, very rare that you will ever get that back. You will probably have better chances at winning the lottery. So anyway, that's my spiel on that, because again, that's what I love so much about this chapter 4, John Wick, is it brings more. It's not just violence. It's not just the body count. It's, you now start to see John as a human and not just this crazy badass assassin. So I really do, I hope they continue this franchise in a good direction. Like I've mentioned, spoiler, they technically have his tombstone at the end of the film. They don't really show what happens. So he gets shot, but he's been shot before. So that's where things get a little weird, because did he die? If you ask me, I don't think he's dead, because again, I've heard that they do want to make more of these films. And I think the only way that you are going to be successful at making these films is if you still include Keanu Reeves. Respectfully, I don't think these films are ready to branch off on their own, like, you know, some other series or television or movies have done. I think you got to stick with Keanu to make these successful. So I really do hope that there is a John Wick Chapter 5. And I don't know, maybe that next film they can start exploring branching off, you know, into these other characters and who they are. And like I've said too, with the daughter that I fell in absolute love with, it's maybe they start giving her a story arc, you know, and kind of going off of that. But they're not there yet, so hopefully maybe in the future. With all that said, again, thank you all so much for watching. You'll notice I've got my England sweater on today because we first match qualifier for the European Championship coming up in 2024. We won over Italy. Suck it, 2-1. But I know it's just a random tidbit for you there. This is why, again, I'm not editing this shit, because fuck it, I have a lot more fun and a lot more excitement when I can just go off the top of my head, stuff like that. So huge thank you to everybody that continues to watch Spot of Nerd or listen on the podcasts. Real quick too, I've mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. The Apple Podcasts, some of those first episodes will not play for a coding thing. Long story short, Apple says I need to change the coding. I'm still trying to figure that out, but it's only like maybe 7 to 10 episodes out of 40. The majority of the newer episodes work, so you should be fine if you only listen on Apple Podcasts. I would probably encourage you to go to Spotify, because they're all playing just fine there. You can also come here, YouTube. Please, if you would be ever so kind, throw that subscribe, the likes, the comments, the whole 9 yards. It's always appreciated. But more importantly, let's start going over to Rumble, because I really do think this is going to be a great thing, especially for people like me, who are conservative, right-wing, conspiracy theorists who just want to give you the facts and the truth, and we want to give you opinions that go against the grain, that go against everything else that you're being told through media. because frankly, we've been right all along. No pun intended. So, with that said, thank you all again, and we will see you guys next time. Later, y'all. Okay, so your end credits, I have to, the greatest scene that I've ever, I swear to you, hand on my heart, that I've ever seen in a film is in John Wick Chapter 4, and the way I'll kind of describe it to you is, so if you've seen the other John Wick films, there's always these scenes where he's kind of maneuvering around the city, or he's maneuvering around the sewers, or a nightclub, so on and so forth. But I love what the director did in this film. There's one sequence where he has a weapon that basically is like a grenade launcher. It shoots fire out, and he's obviously just taking people out. He's going upstairs. He's in this apartment building. But the way the camera is, and if you're listening to this, I guess it's a little hard, but I'll kind of describe it as best as I can. The camera is literally looking down, as in, like, it's almost like a drone footage, and you can see John going through these rooms, taking out the bad guys. It's truly, I've never seen anything like it in an action film, and I dip my hat twice to the director and the writers who made this happen, because it's innovative. It's something we haven't seen before, but it was so well executed that I really do hope they continue that, or it inspires other movie directors to do kind of a similar thing, because you're seeing the film being portrayed in a totally different way, but in a way that is totally bad fucking ass. And I just had to get that out there because it just reinforces that. I really want you to see this, please. If you're listening or watching, go and watch John Wick Chapter 4. You will not be disappointed at all.